You want to buy into the Fujifilm X system, or maybe you just want a second camera for traveling. I've had about 4 years of experience in the Fujifilm X system, and I'm gonna tell you what I think is the best deal for a camera under 1,000 euros. Firstly though, this video is my personal opinion, so I'm sure there's gonna be comments telling me that my choice is terrible and that there's a camera that's way better than the one I'm saying. But I think my use case is versatile enough to talk about a wide range of camera needs. Just to preface though, I shoot video of course for my YouTube videos, and my photography has evolved to be mostly woodland and travel photography, with occasional dabs in motorsport photography as well as portrait from time to time. So I'd say versatile enough. This means a wide range of features needed. Most important for me is the experience of actually shooting, but of course that comes with the features that will make your life easier. So the features are what I'm gonna begin with. Number one, and one of the most important things that I look out for when buying a camera, is weather sealing. Pretty simple, I just want to be able to shoot pictures in any weather imaginable. Might that be when it's raining, but also in dusty environments on the beach or right by the ocean. It's not that I specifically wait for bad weather to go outside to take pictures, but I just don't want to be caught off guard and then can't use my camera just because it's raining a bit. There are of course options for cameras without weather sealing to seal them from the weather. For example, there are these camera hoods that you put on top of your camera, but honestly I find them to be more of a nuisance than anything else. So if my camera has weather sealing, I don't need to worry about anything else. I can just focus on my photography. As a small extra, I find that oftentimes right after a storm, the weather and conditions are perfect for photography. And of course, right after a storm, it could start raining again. Secondly, and that's not a must for all people, not even for me, but it's a very nice to have. In-body image stabilization, short IBIS. I know that a lot of lenses also have stabilization, but I think it's just not really the same, but especially the combination of lens as well as camera is just great, especially when you're shooting in dark conditions, for example in the blue hour in the morning or in the evening. In the beginning I thought IBIS was just useful for video, but honestly when you're shooting video you're mostly either using tripods or gimbals. But for photography it can mean the difference between getting sharp images at 1/15th of a second with low ISO figures, or having to crank up ISO and shooting 1/80th, for example. In this scenario you of course need to shoot a static scene. Obviously that's the only thing your camera can stabilize. If there is moving subjects like cars or animals or whatever, you will have to crank up your ISO as well as your shutter speed. So when you're doing that, you're out of luck either way. As I mentioned in the beginning, a fun shooting experience is on top of my list when choosing a camera. And this is half the reason why I'm using the Fujifilm X system. The main part being that most of the cameras have these physical dials on top of their camera as well as on their lens to individually adjust shutter speed, ISO as well as aperture. But also a focus lever that lets you switch from autofocus to manual focus with just one click. Seeing your settings on top of the camera when you're changing them makes you feel more connected and also slows down your photography. So that way when you're composing a shot, you just take more time, invest more into it, and usually that leads to a better image. And this perfectly ties in with a camera I would recommend for under 1,000 euros. A second-hand Fujifilm X T4. Just a couple of weeks ago I first started seeing offerings for under 1,000 euros popping up on second-hand camera websites. Of course it's not in a like new or in a perfect condition, but just with a couple of signs of wear. But honestly, the camera is a tool. If you're planning on using it and not just having it sit around your room as decor, this shouldn't really be a big issue, especially with what you're getting for your money. On the topic of the aforementioned shooting experience, there's something I really enjoy about the X-T4 that will definitely split opinions, is the flippy screen. I find it very useful for two things: travel photography as well as shooting my YouTube videos. Firstly, when I'm doing travel photography, I almost all of the time have my screenshot, and the reason why is so I focus more on the scene that's in front of me rather than just looking at the picture on my screen. This I think is a great exercise for your compositional thinking, because that way you actually look at the scene, and I think oftentimes you see things that are in the corners of your images that you don't really want there, that you can just eliminate. And if you would just look on your camera screen, you kind of only focus on the main parts, I feel like, and you can just miss some things sometimes. And for my YouTube videos, pretty obvious, I like just seeing myself on the screen, so I don't have to guess if I have the right image or work with gadgets like a mirror to see myself and check the shot. It's just all very much easier with a flippy screen. Sounds weird, but it is important to me, the aesthetic of my camera. Of course, most of the time, photography itself should just motivate you to go out and shoot. But sometimes it just doesn't, and it really helps, I think, if you have a camera that just looks great and looks like a tool that you want to use, because oftentimes I just see it sitting on my shelf and I just want to grab it, go out, take pictures, and that is exactly what I do. And when I do that, I go out more often with my camera, shoot more images, and therefore generally just improve my photography. And the problem with a lot of other cameras out there is that they just look generic, I think, and they don't excite me to want to grab the camera to go out and take pictures. And lastly, the autofocus of the camera. I've heard time and time again that Fujifilm autofocus sucks and it's no use and it's awful and you just always miss your shots. I don't think that's the case. Maybe I just don't have that high standards because I don't shoot that much portrait, but honestly, the autofocus has never really let me down, I think. So most of the time, Fujifilm autofocus is enough for me, especially for things like move-in cars or also move-in people. And for a video, there are options that make it super easy to shoot, so you never really miss focus. For example, there's the autofocus range limiter. Basically, you can determine the focus range of your camera. That way it doesn't shift between your subject and things in the background. For example, for my videos, I almost always use it, so I just set it up in between 40 centimeters and 140 centimeters. So if I sit within that range, it really shouldn't miss focus, and I don't know, I haven't really realized that it does. The only problem that I could have is that I either sit a bit too far away or too close, and maybe I don't realize, or I only realize after the fact in editing, but I usually never really miss focus with that. But for example, this is also a setting I only found out after a couple of years of using the X-T4. So you really have to dig into the menu, because if I would have found it, especially on the first day or first video I did, I would have spared myself a lot of headaches. So all in all, if you're looking for a Fujifilm X system camera, either as a first camera or a second camera or whatever, I think the Fujifilm X-T4 is a great choice, maybe even the best choice for under €1,000. If you want to find out about the successor of the X-T4's successor, the X-T6, and when it will release, check out this video right here.